eighth episode of Viral Break. I can't imagine that we've come so far, and with the help of a lot of wonderful people who are part of our activity, our show, people who came in as guests, people who have helped us source out people, and the beautiful people who watch us live. A wholehearted gratitude goes to one and all. Today we have a wonderful corporate magnate, all set to let us know his journey. I have great pleasure in inviting one of India's stars, one of the business stalwarts who hail from Kerala, but has reached the highest echelons of our corporate world. Ladies and gentlemen, we have great pride in welcoming to our show Mr. Simon George, President of Cargill India. Welcome to Viral Break, Mr. George.
Thank you, Sujil. It's been a wonderful feeling to be part of this. I think it's a great show that you guys are doing. I really feel humbled that you welcomed me, and thank you very much to let me participate here.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Simon George, you have a huge journey behind you. Now, to talk about your journey, you are enjoying. You're the head of a $145 billion company, and you head their India operations called Cargill India. Now, a lot of people may confuse Cargill India with the other Cargill. Now, that's a very amusing name, and we are here to discuss a bit of the fun side of the man Simon George, the professional side of Simon George, and also the philosophy of Simon George, the individual.
Sure. So the funny thing is that when I joined Cargill, and I told my family I'm joining Cargill, so they were also a bit confused.
Did they think you've decided to join the army?
Absolutely. So it was actually because Cargill was more on a B2B businesses, and it was much more known in the American, European, and China and Southeast Asia. And at those days, I'm talking about 10, 12 years back, Cargill was just trying to be a face in India.
Okay. So when did you join Cargill?
So I joined Cargill in 2007. It's been a journey because I was in Singapore. So I was running an operations of when I lost my father. At the time when I took a call in terms of being with your mother, or my mother was not willing to come to Singapore. So you need to take a call, and I just took a call of leaving the job and coming to India back. So with all difficulty, I brought my mother into Bangalore. She was not willing to move out of Chennai. So when I came back, I joined as the Asia Pacific head for Cargill's flavor business. And it's been a great organization to be from that perspective, especially an organization which is very, very people-centric.
I get your point. And I also understand that you run several plants and you employ a very large workforce. Can you throw some light into your operations?
See, when you talk about a food pyramid, the scale or pyramid of a food, you say the bottom of the pyramid is basically the commodities, which is rice, wheat, pulses, millets. Then as you go up the pyramid, you add a value-added products. So Cargill is a company which plays the entire breadth and width of this pyramid. So you have across the world companies specifically playing commodity, playing specifically onto a food ingredient or into an agricultural sense. So Cargill plays the whole, I would say the entire pyramid at different stages. It has different processing in place. So if you look at Cargill globally, it's one of the biggest trading companies in this world. Now, when I say trading, it's commodities. Now, what companies like Cargill do is they understand, for example, if there is an amount of rainfall in let's say, a particular place in Bangalore. Now, the ability to predict this rainfall to give what agriculture produce in the next 3 months and 3 or 4 months, and the ability to see where this demand can be, where this produce can be used up, because there could be also shortages across the world based on different climatic conditions, different issues in different world. So it visualizes the global supply, demand and supply. And the ability to do that much ahead helps the whole world to move forward in terms of the food supply chain. So that's one place is a commodity. But so we bring in global standards of storage of whether it is wheat, whether it's rice, whether it is maize, whether it's millet, the ability to keep, store, and in the distribution in the right with the food safety perspective. The second part, as I said, is about the value addition. So the agricultural products will be converted into a value-added product. Now, that is where a farmer could actually start gaining more. The ability to be part of the chain to create more food processing. For example, in a country like India, the food processing from the basic agriculture is only 7%, which means on comparison to US, which is about 35%. So you can imagine the moment you start linking to that processing, the amount of money, the kind of thing that a farmer could get also increases. So we play every role, and therefore we have about 11 factories which produces different kinds of product. We do edible oil, we do animal nutrition, we do convert corn into derivatives of starches. We have also what you call as bio-industrial products, that is using agricultural products for industrial purpose, which gives a much more responsiveness in terms of the commitment to our nation and our world as in terms of pollution. It reduces. So a big role of bio-industrial, converting waste into energy, all those kind of things.
Now, two things I found about Cargill is one, your initiative to reduce the plastic in your packaging, and number two, of course, that's an incredible initiative, because plastic is probably world's most frightening adversary. So if as a policy, if you have brought down the usage of plastic in your packaging considerably, that definitely calls for a worthwhile commendation. Now, talk about your recent CSR activity that you have offered the government to support 16 million people in a free meal campaign during the lockdown period. Now, could you please elaborate on how are you doing this, and where all have you planted your network, and who are the beneficiaries?
So Sujil, let's understand that, we have globally, in the very initial point of time, our chairman has committed at the very first week a $35 million commitment into the CSR. That's the first amount of kind of a thing that came in. So it is also the owners of each country to decide what plan to do So from in India, our leadership team actually sat together and said, the best thing that we can do in this crisis is about the ability to give a meal. When we say a meal, the ability for a family to live with a certain amount of requirements for a period of time. So what we are looking at is, there are 2 or 3 things that we have done. One is, we have actually tied up with 3 NGOs. One is called Akshay Patra, which makes the complete meal, and therefore they produce the meal and give a section of people. 2, we have also looked at the food kit. For example, if we can give, for example, 20,000 families a food kit which consists of flour, oil, or certain accessories, they can live with it for a period of time, for a month, for this one. So we have combined all these activities along with all to make sure. So a majority of our spending on the CSR in this specific on COVID, we do we have a huge commitment in terms of a CSR activity other than what is COVID. But we were quick enough to say that this is a time that is required in terms of making sure that we can remove hunger. You see what's happening in places like Bombay. You saw what's happening in the city where the migrant laborers are basically fighting for the day-to-day food. So can we step in? Can we be a small help for the government, for these people? And that's what we are trying to do.
Now, that comes in the wake of allegations that India is a feast for multinational companies. Now, regardless of the fact that these MNCs have actually earned a substantial amount of money from the Indian consumerist market, when it actually came to the particular lockdown period where it is famine-like, it's a famine-like scenario in most of the places across India. And when you look at the contributions, the CSR activities planned and professed by our Indian companies vis-a-vis the MNCs would have probably made, multiple times the money that vis-a-vis an Indian company would have made the last 10 years or 15 years or 20 years, ever since our market became a global open economy. But compared to Indian companies, the contribution, especially in the CSR category, was very, very minimal. And there was this huge uproar within the Indian system, especially in different societal divides, that there was a call to focus on the Indian companies post-COVID. We shouldn't be going multinational. We shouldn't be spending money, hard-earned resources for MNC companies. We should be focusing on everything that is produced by Indian companies. Now, how would you react to that scenario? Was it a knee-jerk reaction, or is there any truth in it?
See, we are a country where we can give our opinion. So we take it both, whether it's negative or positive, in the right sense, because we as a country, we are free to talk what we want. With respect to investment and returns, I think it is about the opportunity that the country provides, and I'm sure multinationals have come in. There are many who are invested for a huge amount, and that has created huge job opportunity. And what of the money that we make, a multinational or any other company, are obliged to the tax laws of the country. Now, let's talk about in terms of the CSR activity in terms of. So I have personally been experienced to work both a type of companies, and I would say that multinationals, in terms of the CSR activity, there's a slight difference from a local company. Now, I'll tell you the difference is a local company is completely dependent on India. Now, when you look at a Cargill, for example, when they commit, you need to understand that as of now, we have about 2.5 million people across the world. So it is just not India. So our commitment to the world of mankind is more important than to say whether I'm Indian or a Pakistani or a Bangladeshi or a Sri Lanka. It's about our commitment for mankind. So that's how a multinational use it rather than say country specific. There are country specific incidents when multinationals have involved and done what they need to do. So I think it's a perspective of people who really, there are many companies, I would say, in India who have come out to do a phenomenal work in CSR activity. I don't want to specify names, but I know for sure multinational. I'm being part of an American Chamber of Commerce. I know the American companies, how much they are getting involved in terms of making. So I think it's a perspective. It's very easy to beat maybe a multinational baby. But the fundamental fact is these are organizations which are as equal responsive. And I think there are many times when they mean what they do and they walk the talk.
Now, you've been part of the corporate environment for almost 35 years, 30 years now?
Yeah, I think right from my age of 22. Yes, I'm 31 years. You're right.
31 years. Okay. Now, do you think that, and I'm sure you would have crossed the boundaries of several companies, moved from one to the other, and risen up the ladder and enjoyed several high-level positions as far as the policy-making apparatus of the companies are concerned. Do you think that a company or a business or an enterprise should be responsible, socially responsible to their consumers and to society, regardless of the fact that whether they are an MNC or a national company?
Sujil, let's be very clear. We all are survivors because of this society. So whether it's an enterprise or an individual, we have to survive because the society has to live in this world. So the larger principles of life is about the survival and sustainability. And that's why today, if you look at any multinational you talk, whether it's Unilever, Nestle, whether it's Cargill, or whether you look at Indian companies, whether it's Britannia, ITC, or XYZ, all these companies are talking sustainability. Now, what is sustainability? Sustainability is the continuation of mankind, the society, that what we are talking. So that comes above everything that we are talking. So there were days, if you look at, you ask me my 31 years of career, I was seen right from the beginning of the year when companies didn't bother much about all these things. Today, to a situation where companies are playing a very responsible role in this. I'm a strong believer that going forward, especially with a COVID situation like this, is going to change the world to a much more sustainability thought process by every organization and every individual. And you know, the kind of life the human being thinks about also will be dramatically much different from what it is. So I believe, answering your question is, the level of commitment has been tremendously changing in the last 30 years. Maybe from a scale of 1 to 10, it could have been 1 when I was starting my career. From not me personally, from a corporate perspective, to what is today, I would say is the 8 and 9 for large responsible companies.
Now, we see a whole range of businesses, right, from steel to plastic to you name it, the works. Now, if a company has to survive post-COVID period, and if the company is a small and medium-sized company, what are the challenges that you think a company would face during this particular period? First, how to face while they face the COVID. Number 2, post-COVID, what are the actions that probably help them survive the period, and also create a scenario wherein they are able to create a new platform for them to move on or move forward without getting their posteriors burnt.
Yeah. Sujil, if you ask me my thought process, let's say without COVID for a minute, even if COVID was not there, I think the world was going through a tremendous change in the next decade. And for example, the use of energy across this world is dramatically going to change from you saw whether it's going to be petroleum to solar or renewable energy. See, because these are all disruptive thoughts, you see. But when does a disruptive idea works? Is when the cost of disruption, the cost of this thing is become economical to the individual. Till then, it doesn't work. So if you really look at it, when solar energy was started about 15 years back, the cost of producing solar energy was so high.
It is, yeah.
Today, the cost of producing solar energy and wind energy is much lower than the coal. So that is where when the disruption technology, disruptive technology thoughts that is going to change the way we do our life. So same way you saw, because of disruptive technology is what going to happen in the automotive industry. It's no more it could be much more battery operated cars. And what we're saying at some point of time, we'd say there's a kind of a tipping point. They call this 20, 23, or 24, when the cost of battery. It's not about the cost of battery that is going to matter, but the cost of running per kilometer.
True.
So what is going to happen is the cost of this is now becoming so viable. Even a company like Amazon is now placing 200,000 trucks for their delivery, all on battery operated. Now, please understand, a company like Amazon or XYZ are not going to place just because I have a commitment to sustainability and make a loss and therefore I don't survive. It has now become that this technology has become viable. So, point is, the world is into a disruptive mode, one. Two, let me also talk to you in a totally different area, which is the food. Now, the food, what you like it or not, the population is growing. It's about 6.5 billion, which is going to 10 billion, which is a 60% increase in terms of 70% increase in terms of population number by 2050. Are we producing more food? How are we going to produce the food when worldwide we have land constraint? We can't cut forest. Sustainability comes in. We don't have enough water. It's about disruptive thoughts that will make changes. And therefore, I'm of a strong believer that, forget the COVID for a minute. Without COVID, the world would have seen big changes in the next 10 years. Now, what happens when a COVID is coming? A COVID is going to actually from my perspective, it's going to speed in the whole change. These are, see, mankind will face this pandemic. It's not that we will not win over it. We are going to win over it. As I think it's a matter of time. And that is the biggest learning for us. And therefore, my thoughts is that there'll be a lot of technology that will drive the way you do your business. There will be a lot more IT plus, I would also say, is about biotechnology will come. The fear, for example, if you look at, there will be a lot more apps to run and feel and control things. So my point of view is the world has changed, and therefore let me also tell you what my feeling is also is the world is entering into a very, very unpredictable future. Now, when I say unpredictable, it doesn't mean bad. A future which you're not able to predict properly. So because we went through different industrial revolutions and perspective. It's about machine, man, creating job. We were predictable what we want to do. But for example, internet itself, if you look at maybe 30, 40 years back when it came in, nobody thought internet is going to change our life. And believe me, government had no role of internet. The internet was discovered by somebody somewhere in a small shed, and it redefined the world, and the government did not know what is happening. Today, it's redefining the way you live today. So now what our feeling is about the ability to adapt to the new changes is what is the critical part, I would say, specifically the challenges for the young people, not for people like me. In the sense I'm just saying is, at this point of time of my life, the changes that might come is I'm almost done and I'm doing another 5-10 years to go in life. But the kids are different. They are going to see different, and therefore the mindset and the challenge that they get, it can go through different difficult times. So the important thing about this, I would like to only convey is about being nimble and adaptive to changes. And therefore, it brings in, because the kid needs what he studies today, tomorrow it will disappear and it's not worth it. So my point of view is, it's about being nimble, adaptive to the new technologies, new thoughts, rather than saying I'm resisting, this won't happen, that won't happen, is not what people need.
So you mean to say that even in and this kind of disruptions will definitely affect the small and medium-sized sector too, naturally, because they are a byproduct of the larger financial ecosystem,
See,
and
small and medium
probably
sector is an important part of Indian ecosystem. You like it or not, it gives a tremendous amount of job opportunity. See, my only thing is there will be a lot of changes that could happen. Let me tell you, I give you one example, and therefore why this is digitalization. Today, if you look at agriculture in our country, 18% of our economy comes from agriculture. So 18% of GDP is from agriculture. However, 50% of job employment comes from agriculture. So you can imagine the skewness. And therefore what happens is a farmer, a small farmer, does not earn enough. And your farms are small. And today there's no technology to help them to earn more. So if you look at what the Prime Minister has been talking in terms of doubling the farmer's income by 2022, one of the things that everybody thinks is, why don't we pay them more? Okay. So, but paying them more per kilo does not make you globally competitive.
Okay. Because your retail prices will go high.
Retail prices go. But one more thing, let me just tell you is, imagine I'm a company who can buy this product from you, convert it into a finished product, and I can, therefore you are creating more value in the country, and I can compete in the world. You know what will happen? You will not be able to meet a China, or you will never take on a US. So what happens is you become uncompetitive. The ability to be globalization in terms of competitiveness is important even at that level. Now, this is not happening in India. Okay, you can see the yields have improved, yes, but we are nowhere near what is the global standards in many of the products. So the point I'm trying to say is, we need to change. There's a lot amount of change that is required, and today digitalization. You might be wondering, can I tell you one small example? Is a small district near Bangalore. Okay, there's a Ola for agriculture equivalent, and there's Ola or Uber equivalent. So the guy says, I have 100 kilos of a fruit. Generally what happens, that fellow wastes that 100 kilos, because 100 kilos is nothing. He has to put in a vehicle, send it, he doesn't make money. It goes rotten. 50% of Indian foods goes for rotten. Now what happens, every day call, this guy has 100 calls. He connects the logistics, straight away puts into another company, which is startup. Young people are doing it. Startup, which is a warehouse, which is cold storage, gets locked into that, connecting to Reliance Retail, connecting to Big Bazaar. So these small and medium, all these are small and medium people. The ability to reinvent yourself to the need of the new ones will give a huge opportunity.
So you need to be innovative. You need to be ready to embrace technology as well as the finer things in operations. So for that you need to be literate, you need to be aware. Now, how do you reach out to these end users? Because unlike, probably we are lucky enough to be part of a state called Kerala, where our literacy levels are much higher compared to the rest of India. So what do you think are the measures that each government in these states should do? Should they improve the literacy program, or should they reach out to the farmers through some other levels? Because automatically digitalization is a product of literacy programs. Without being literate, without having the ability to read, you cannot put a smartphone in a person's hands. You cannot put a digital technology into a very indigenous mechanism. Similar, for example, a farmer, even if he has 5,000 acres of farming, and if he has to completely turn digital, he needs he needs to be educated first. He needs to be literate first. So don't you think that our primary education program had to be, has to be revisited on a national level and at the same time given adequate importance at each state level before we get into this war cry of changing in terms of the international standards?
Sure. See, primary education is critical. I don't disagree at all with your perspective on that. But let's understand one thing. Today, India has 350 million smartphones in the country. We are mobile connectivity about 450 million plus or minus this thing connectivity, and it's going to touch 1 billion in 2030 smartphones. Okay, so that's a projection. Now let me tell you, for example, connectivity like Geo has changed a farmer's life dramatically. Now what has happened is, in every nook and corner of this country, these smartphones are being provided. So what is going to happen with all these new digital startups is, the guy will be able to see on one particular platform. Now that's going to be interesting. Now you don't have to have high level of education, but I'm just saying is, I know how much is going to rain today, how much is what is the weather condition to be there, and therefore there has been also a set of this one, what fertilizer to use, what pesticide to use, all input ultimately connecting to the market and to the food processor. This is what is going to happen in the next couple of years' time. And this digital platform will help a farmer dramatically, and therefore delinking a lot of middlemen. And therefore the price recovery, today the price recovery could be 50% of the retail value or 40% of the retail value. And the wastage could be anywhere between 20 to 50% depending on product to product. Now just imagine, technology will change everything. And to that point, so I am an optimist to say that primary education is a critical part, no doubt on that. I'm not trying to say, but technology is going to make them drive and change, because a lot of localization in language, everything that's happening now. Now, if you look at this content of digitalization, it says how to sow a seed. And then you have a YouTube facility, what do you do? If you find an insect, how do you do? So this is something which a farmer will be overcrowded in the near future. Maybe it's a little overcrowded, but it is good. And I'll tell you why I'm telling you this. In the last 1 year, the capital infusion into startups in agricultural digitalization is $400 million US. Just 1 year. And the previous year, it was just $75 million US. So imagine, and now companies like Microsoft, TCS, the big names are really getting into Indian agriculture. And I can tell you, very soon you will hear small Indian companies who are these digital companies, equivalent to an Infosys, equivalent to this thing, becoming a large scale, really a big company in this thing, providing digital solution to every small farmer in this world. So I'm just saying it's starting, but the speed is going to be tremendous.
I understand. Now, a challenge that the whole world was facing for a long time, I must say that I have to say that I have to be harsh here. The Chinese aggression and invasion into the world economy, it has helped a certain section of our commercial environment. But it has also largely eroded into the quality values of products and services across the globe. For example, India is also, and India's small and medium-sized sectors have also taken a huge hit as far as the Chinese invasion is concerned. Now, the most interesting part is that when I saw in Bombay during the Ganpati immersion,
Sure.
Unlike yesteryears when we had Ganpati idols made of sand, made of earthen clay and all that, the largest number of Ganpatis that you saw after the immersion were plastic ones made in China. Now imagine the colossal uh, wastage, the alarming scenario of large plastic dumping happening in India, thanks to these Chinese products. Now, another scary scenario is the high level of lead content that you find in the Chinese toys that are being pumped into our markets. No wonder the government of India came out with an anti-dumping policy years ago. Now, one way to counter the Chinese aggression is to increase the productivity of our local producers, encourage these so-called distributors and stockists to stop that and move into own production, and also give them certain training in terms of how to maintain quality throughout their production throughout the year. All this is absolutely essential as far as the countering the contraband and counterfeit that is being pumped into Indian markets by the Chinese companies. Now, what do you think is the right way forward? Do we need to embrace Chinese products and also increase the mid-level belly of India, or we need to counter the insurgency created by the Chinese aggression by empowering our SME sector?
Okay, there are different schools of thoughts on how you counter this. First of all, let's be very clear. If somebody has bought a lead quantity more, somebody has allowed it to come in. Okay, so you need to know whom to be blamed for that. It's not the Chinese. I'm just trying to say Chinese are manufactured. There's no values. Maybe you're right that specific transaction. But let's not take the credit for certain things what Chinese are doing. They are also moved ahead in terms of technology, their innovation. So there is something that country is also doing right. Maybe there are certain things which is going wrong. And therefore, first of all, my point of view is the ability of, first of all, not accepting these kind of thing should be a country-wise policy. Therefore, today, why are we accepting that particular product? We are okay with the price. Okay. So first of all, as a country, we should take that larger decision on what is the quality that we need to approve to be the same. But let me come to the larger issue. What you're talking. There are two ways to do it. One is train everybody in India on every product that Chinese do, and compete them, and therefore don't let them in. Is that the way? Or another way of thinking is, what is best for India? Where we can be globally competitive. So do that as a mass scale production and become globally competitive. Therefore, you will take on a China in a US market. You will see today. You imagine there was a US-China trade war just about 4 months back, before they came to a certain settlement. You know, the papers were talking about this is the best opportunity for India to take over. So everybody used to talk. So wherever I used to go, the first question is they'll ask me is like, okay, now what is going to happen? Will India get that opportunity? The point was, India didn't get any opportunity. It is Southeast Asian countries which got most of these opportunities when they decided to shift. You hear the same thing now with the COVID coming in, that Japan want to pull out, US companies want to pull out, and everybody wants to come to India. My point of view is, we need to be ready. Our readiness from an industrial policy, industrial formation of a company, our ease of doing business, I think we are not focusing on these things. I'm sure the Prime Minister, the whole group is working on. There's a much improvement from ease of doing business in India. From 140, it has moved to 74. Things are changing, but still on the ground, a lot of improvements need to be done. So therefore, my point of view is, before shooting them, it is important for us as a country that we become competitive in what we want to do. We in competitive in not just price, the ability to innovate consistently, the ability to do what the consumer wants. Understand the consumer in this thing. Third is these raw materials basically available in India, which I can convert into a mass, large-scale product that I can take the world on. So, for example, look at our software industry. That was an industry which we had our talent. Okay, so we are creating a world of this. Maybe still we're not reached a Microsoft or this one, but I can see things are moving towards that direction. That guys, but find is therefore the ability to compete in the world is important, and therefore you stand on your own rather than just saying China what to do. So that's why I'm saying innovation, ability to adapt, look at scale of operation. I can tell you, for example, I was in a store, I was in a Amazon fulfillment center in Seattle recently. One shed is 23 acres. The kind of scale of operation, okay? And therefore, how do you make cost-effective supply chain? We need to learn a lot more. But India is changing. I'm not saying for a minute it's not changing. So we need to think and really look at a rapid change and just not incremental change. We need exponential change. And whole world is looking at India. Can you replace China? Point is, we need to ask ourselves, are we ready? It's very nice to say you fellows are pushing this, doing that. Are you ready? If China stops supplies for a minute, there are many products that will struggle. So the ability to be ready is more important from an industry policy perspective, our competitors' perspective, our innovation perspective. But we need to make an attempt and move on. So that's where I feel that as a country, we need to really build on these capabilities.
Now, are we ready? That's a great question. And many people say that we are ready or we could be ready because our average age of India is 27 vis-a-vis the 40s of the Chinese, and much more higher in other countries, including Europe. Now, to remain young, you need to first think young and also do young. What are the stuff that you do to remain young?
Oh, that's a good question. One thing is, I keep consistently learning from my kids. I tell this to many people. I just told you about my daughter. I was just talking to you just prior to this. My daughter, who is a medical doctor by profession, so she's 25 years old. The amount of passion she shows on her role, like we are scared that she goes to hospital every day because there is this COVID thing, and she attends and manages people. It worries us, but it makes us proud. She plays that role. So, on the contrary, my son is a different type. So I always look at learning from these kids to keep yourself things that what you miss at this age. The second most important, I really would say is keep yourself fit. There's nothing that can replace your health. I'm not talking a rather mother statement, but I really believe in the last 30 days when I'm at home, my fitness cycle has gone through a tremendous change, and it's really brought me a lot more energy and fitness. I think I really advocate that it's about keeping yourself fit.
Now, you're part of the corporate environment. And as we all know, that being part of the corporate environment, time is an essential factor. And the most expensive factor in a corporate world is also time. How do you manage time? Your wife is a teacher, your daughter is a doctor, and I forgot to mention that your son is a current reigning world champion in powerlifting. Now that's something that's great news to entire India and especially our state. Now in all this, you also run a family. You manage a high octane corporate company. And how do you manage time? There are a lot of people who probably are in similar shoes would say that managing our personal time, finding our me time in all this is quite a task. What is your take on it?
First and foremost, if I mean, I'm just reflecting that question to myself, and I always found time on what I want to do, and because that's the choice that you're making. And most important thing, why I do, if I look at it, is I don't do anything. It's about. I'm sure if any of my colleagues who are listening to me will know that it's all about. It's not about you doing everything. It's about the team that gathers together. Ideas lies there. And believe me, I would say that all my growth has been because that these were already available with the team who are doing phenomenal. So my job, the ability for people who are working with me to delegate delegation is one of my biggest strengths. And allowing that freedom for them to take the independent choice in working, I would say is one of my biggest strength, and that's where I'm here today. And that has given me a lot of free time. And that made me always to think, what else can we do? Whether it's for the organization, for the family. So I'm a big believer, and the same happened in the family. I don't think so I disturb Shama on what she has to do. She's independent. My children are independent. I don't think so we interfere in any one of her work or something. I mean, absolutely free to take the call on what. For example, my son decided that I want to be, as you said, powerlifting this thing. I didn't stop him, or I didn't give him my kind of a piece that is not right or wrong. Leave them, because today people are brainy enough. They know what to do is right for the organization or for the family. It's about leaving that little bit of freedom to themselves to take the call. And that has given me a lot of time and space to think about me and what I want to do.
Now, 10 years hence, when you retire or after you've retired, how would you love to be known as? I'm not talking about the other's perspective. I'm talking about your own perspective. Would you like to be happily be called a billion-dollar man who ran successful business empires, or would you be happy to be known as as somebody who presides over a happy family?
I think there are a couple of things. There is a professional side and a family side. When I say a professional side, in fact, I was sharing this to a lot of my friends recently. Since you're asking me, I was sharing, I just said that all people who reported to me in the last 30 years, and where are they? And I said, listen, more than 60% of the people who reported directly to me today are at a position of a CEO or a CFO, and that gives a tremendous satisfaction. Whether my philosophy was correct, it's a taste. It's the proof of the pudding I felt, and it gives me a tremendous thing. See, at the end of the day, it's not about how much profit you made. It doesn't give you a kick after some time. It's about what you created, people. What is the role that you played in the CSR activity to make it happen? So today, when you were sharing that 17 million people that listen, I'll tell you, in my life, I cannot forget that. Because that is a phenomenal achievement to me as personally. So gone are your days of thinking about, profitability. It is about these fine things that make you laugh, smile at the end of the day. From a family perspective, I still, I've not really thought about from a family perspective, but I would like to be called as a decent father who are taking care of my children. I don't think so I will get beyond that. I'm happy if I get that.
Now, I'm sure there is a wife to look after too, and I'm sure that you would need some kind of certificate in your November days, because you definitely will find her next to you more than your children, who will definitely fly away to pursue their own lives.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure, I'm sure. But at the same time, I've heard a lot of stories about your man management skills and how you have given the space and the respect to your colleagues. And that's an incredible achievement, as you very rightly said. It's not about building companies; it's about building people who become companies or create companies and create environments which gives you the real high more than the numbers that you apply onto your computers. Now, your personal growth, was it a fairy tale growth, or was it something that you planned?
Let me tell you one thing. I never planned anything in my life from a growth perspective. What when I joined as a trainee, my biggest dream was to be a factory manager of that particular plant. Okay, that is all my dream was those days. And factory managers are usually at the age of 45, 50. I'm talking of 30 years back. So in a plant, you're a factory manager, a 30-acre site, 40-acre site, security salutes you, all that in terms of a factory manager gives you a nice feeling. So that was my dream.
Okay.
And to achieve by 40, 45. Okay. Fortunately, I could do that in 18 months. And
18 months.
18
Okay.
months. And that is because of only one thing I would say is, I don't think personally I'm a great brilliant guy. But I know one thing is, uh, if you can build a team, I've been repeating this word team because suddenly you will see the sum of few people together is a multiplier. And it really gives you like a aircraft, lift you up, and you yourself don't know what's lifting you up. So I would really tell is about the ability to give the space, and that space creation give ideas, just not mine, about the team, people who are working with me, who was 2 levels level, 3 levels level, picking up those ideas. That, in my whole life, I would have only picked up ideas from this, but I will never leave that idea. And due respect to the guy the person who has done it, we always give the respect, and that built me more as a leader, and that helped me to grow much more. So I was very lucky. Every circumstances, I was wondering how I got into that. But if I think back and realize, it's the ability that I gave the space to these people. One, two is the ability to recognize it's their idea. And what people generally lose out in this world is about giving the right deserved person the right thing. If the moment you don't do that, you are actually insecure. So we all are human beings and we all have insecurity in our minds. But the ability to keep that insecurity as much as low as possible actually makes you lighter to fly higher and higher. I think that is the only reason where I would have come to this level. Otherwise, it would have been impossible.
They say the difference between managers and leaders. Managers are people who push and extract, whereas leaders are people who pull and expect. And I'm sure your journey has been a mix of both. And no wonder you find true joy in having created people, mentored people, and been part of their lives, being a catalyst to a lot of junior people who you've groomed and brought them to different levels. Now, that's a hallmark of a great professional and also a great human being. It's a great pride and privilege to have met you, sir, and to have had you on our show, Viral Break. And we are greatly honored by your presence. And thank you so much on behalf of Viral Break for being part of us.
Thank you, Sujil. It has been an exciting time that you had me with. And really, thank you for inviting me. I'm really humbled. At least I could talk to a crowd which I had never been exposed to. Thank you very much. It's a great experience.
Now, that was Mr. Simon George, President of Cargill India, talking to us from his Bangalore home, and somebody who heads India, the Indian operations of a $145 billion enterprise. Somebody who has seen the world, been there, done it all. A food man, an out-and-out food man who's created several jobs and is also behind the beautiful CSR project where 16 million people are being served with a free meal across India. Now, on that note, we come to the end of the program, and I also thank our technical team, Kirti, Tilagan, Arun, Prijit, and Priscil, and also our friend Vinu S. Murthy, who facilitated this chat show. Thank you so much once again. Signing off, Big Mouth, Sujil Chandra Bose on Viral Break. Thank you.